Now let's dive a little bit deeper into 3D and learn how to create and draw 3D objects. So I'm going to go over to my 3D menu, and on the sidebar here you'll see that we have our stock 3D models, but we also have 3D objects and 3D doodle. So creating objects is really just as simple as clicking and dragging. So let's go ahead and select the cube and left click and drag in the viewport. And when I let go, you see it wiggles a little bit and it gives us some 3D controls. And if I go into View in 3D, you'll see that we have a 3D cube. Now, if we want, we can manipulate this by selecting it. We can move it. We can scale it. Now, if I wanted to scale it in the opposite direction, I could rotate it until it snaps and then scale it this way. Rotate it back, and now we have something like a cereal box. So as you can see, very easy to create 3D objects. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit delete, and let's take a look at some of the other 3D objects we can create. We have a basic sphere, so we can draw that out. If we draw it round, it becomes a sphere, or we can scale it if we want. And so we can make kind of a pill shape here. We also have cylinders. Now we draw cylinders from the side, very similar to the cube. But again, this does create a cylinder. We have a capsule, which is basically a cylinder with half spheres on the end. And as you can see, very similar object. And we also have the torus, or a donut as it's called in Paint 3D. And then finally we have the cone. And again, the cone is just left click and drag. And as you can see, we have a cone, and we can certainly manipulate this just like any other object. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. So those basic shapes can be combined to create other shapes, and we'll be doing that in a little bit. But I also want to show you how to use 3D Doodle. Now this is a way to draw custom shapes and extrude them into 3D. So we have two types. We have sharp edge and soft edge, and they both work pretty much the same. So let's go ahead and do sharp edge first. Now when I do this and left click on the canvas, notice how we get this big circle. Now the circle is our starting point. We need to trace a path that comes all the way around to that circle. Now we can trace it in one of two ways. If I keep my hand off of left click and just drag, I can create a straight line. So I can anchor that by touching left click, and I can do that again. Now if I hold left click, I can start to draw freehand. So I'm holding down my left click. As soon as I let up, I go back to straight line. If I left click and hold again, I can create whatever shape I want. Lift up, I'm creating straight lines. Now once I'm done, all I have to do is highlight this circle, left click, it closes the shape and extrudes it. And as you can see, we have the shape that we want. I'm going to go back into edit mode here. And if we want, we can use a little trick to control the depth of this extrude. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so that it snaps 90 degrees towards me. And then I can either stretch or squash this by manipulating it left and right. And that way I can get the depth of this that I want. So that's sharp edge. And as you can see with sharp edge, we're getting a very sharp edge here along the top and the sides. I'm going to go ahead and select delete. Now the next one is soft edge. Now I'm going to go ahead and change my color. Let's go ahead and select the light blue. And soft edge creates a softer edged object. So one great example is a cloud. So again, we're going to draw this in the same way. I'm going to left click, set a start point. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag out a line, and then I'm going to left click and hold, and draw something that looks kind of like a cumulus cloud or something like that. And then I'm going to come back to my start point, highlight it, and let go. Now, because I selected soft edge, you can see that this is a softer edged object. And if we go into edit here, we can rotate this so you can see how this kind of gives you a nice soft edge. This is great for drawing organic things such as cushions, pillows, clouds, for example. So as you can see, there's a number of different ways to create 3D objects from scratch. We can use basic shapes, or we can draw our own custom shapes and extrude those with either sharp edges or soft edges.